Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. In today's review, I'm going to be taking a look at the newly released Transformers masterpiece MP-47 Autobot Hound. If you are in the market for picking one of these figures up, then I definitely recommend that you should check out Showzi's store, and for that there will be links down in the description box below where this figure is now currently in stock. MP-47 marks the first masterpiece release of the decade and the first masterpiece release of 2020, and I've definitely got to say that the engineering within this figure is an absolute marvel. To begin with, we're going to take a quick look at the packaging, and for the packaging we have a really awesome image of Hound in both his robot mode as well as his vehicle mode. MP-47 Hound. It also states that his vehicle mode is a Willys Jeep CJ3B. We've got the masterpiece logo, Jeep sponsorship at the top, as well as the Takara Tomy design. On the side of the packaging we have an image of Hound wielding his scuba diving mask as well as wielding Spike, and then of course on the back of the packaging we have an entire plethora of different product images showcasing the figure in both his vehicle mode as well as his robot mode, also showcasing the plethora of different accessories that this figure does in fact come with, as well as the many different features that this figure does in fact include. On the side of the packaging we also have another image of the Autobot Hound Willy Jeep vehicle mode, and the top of the packaging states that this is Transformers masterpiece MP-47 Cybertron Autobot Scout Hound. As well as the included instruction manual, we also get a really nice collector's card as per tradition with these MP styled figures. Transformers masterpiece with a fantastic piece of artwork of Hound within his robot mode as well as his vehicle mode in the back, MP-47, and then on the back of the cards we have actual product shots of the figure in robot mode and vehicle mode, some statistics as well as some tech specs, all in a Japanese type language. And here we have the figure out of his packaging, and as of course he comes packaged within his vehicle mode. Now if you do order direct from Showzi, you do in fact get the MP-47 collector's coin. I do believe that this coin is exclusive to a particular release, and you do in fact get this if you do order over at Showzi's store, so for that there is links down in the description box below. But as you can see, much like all the MP figures I've recently reviewed, it has got a sculpture of Hound's face within the Matrix of Leadership type design, Transformers masterpiece Takara Tomy, as well as an MP-47 decal on the bottom, and this is made out of an entire die-cast piece, and this is in fact a collector's pin. Now coming to the actual figure himself, this was a figure that I was really excited for when first initial product images began to release, and I've got to say that this figure does not disappoint whatsoever. Now before I begin this review and go in depth, I've got to say that yes, I have heard about the breakage reports, but I honestly think that some of those are perhaps due to user error, as although some of the pieces are fairly thin and do appear fragile upon first impressions, if you do take your time and do take ease with this figure, I honestly don't believe you'll have any problems whatsoever, as I, as of yet, have not encountered any cracks or pieces falling off, and I have actually transformed this figure back and forth roughly 5 times and have found myself not encompassing any type of QC issues. Now just setting the Spike with Wiki figure off to the side, this is a completely different mold and is much larger than the Spike that came with both MP-44 and MP-45. I'll bring out some comparisons later on, but this is a much detailed, much larger representation, and the quality control on this figure is really nicely well done. None of the joints have popped off on me whatsoever, and it just feels like a lot more solid figure than those 2 previous Spike releases. Taking a look at the actual vehicle mode itself, of course this is based on the Willys Jeep alt form that Hound does obtain within the G1 cartoon, and I love some of the detailing that they've actually put within the interior. We've got the J logo on the steering wheel as well as many different details on the actual desk board itself. It really is rather interesting to see. We've got this missile launcher at the back, which is an absolute pain to stay on. I have in fact even thought about gluing it on, but haven't made that decision as of yet. We've got some additional accessories that do just plug onto the back, such as this faux tire as well as this gas can at the back. All of these do in fact implement within the transformation, so you don't necessarily have to remove these when transforming, but we've got some nice details such as this almost copper paint for the tail lights. I think the wheels have also got some nice detailing in them as well. We've got these arrow sections, we've got Jeep at the top, we've also got this really nice front windscreen with some window wipers which can in fact fold down if you so choose. That's also a nice attention to detail. Super nice Autobot emblem at the top, as well as some nice details at the front, as well as this whole towing section. They have added the play feature, or feature just in general, of you being able to actually actually lift the hood up itself, and they have molded this section here which actually covers Hound's face within vehicle mode in order to make it look as if you are looking at engine details, but there's no denying that these are in fact the top of the arms and the top of Hound's forehead. We've also got some nice details such as these mirrors on each side, as well as the star and Autobot emblem, and the figure also comes with a pair of additional side view mirrors if you are to break these, so that you can in fact swap those out. So a really nice looking Jeep mode. In terms of accessories, this figure does of course come with the top part of the roof. This is an additional component that you can peg over the top, and you can in fact store some of the additional accessories such as the 2 alternate face plates, the key that he comes with, as well as you can plug the faux tire and gas can within here as well. And I do believe that you can in fact plug this blaster in here somewhere. I for one haven't found no weapon storage for this huge translucent beam effect, but this piece here, honestly, I couldn't imagine a way that they could have found themselves actually being able to store within the figure. He also does come with a holographic figure. I guess this is supposed to replicate Spike, or just a general human rolling around in the vehicle, in order to give it the sense that he is actually being driven by some form of humanoid character. I think this is quite a nice inclusion and definitely looks really awesome within the vehicle mode itself, and does stay in there rather securely. I would recommend handling this character with care, as I'm not entirely sure the durability of it. If you perhaps drop it from quite a large height, perhaps it could break. It is made out of a rather rigid type of transparent plastic, and transparent plastic is never the most sturdiest of plastics at all. Now, in terms of actually implementing this top part onto Hound, you're going to have to essentially just take this here and fold this within this middle section, so in between the 2 car seats. This piece here I find is a lot easier to implement if you do in fact remove the faux tire on the back, as well as the gas canister, as you do actually have to overlay it over this. So what you essentially have to do here is plug this on top and then just smooth it around, and where these top ridges are at the top of this piece, you're going to want to cover these ones, so just snap that over the top there, and then it's more or less just a matter of going around and just collapsing this all over the vehicle mode. And that is how the top section of Hound is supposed to go over the top of the vehicle mode, and I definitely think that this gives it a great alternative look. And once again, with this plugged on, you can add the additional weapons, but seeing as I'll be removing this very shortly for transformation, I won't be doing that. But as you can see, it definitely does present a very different look for Hound, and I'm so glad that they did in fact include this accessory, as it definitely looks awesome when plugged onto the figure properly. It's just as easy to remove as it is to plug on. It does literally just pop over the top, and then these weapons here, such as this faux tire, does have a big port here that you're just going to want to peg onto the back. I do believe that it goes on this side like so, perhaps at the top like this. So just peg that on, and then take this little gas can and just tab this into place just like that. So really quite nice looking alternate form for Hound. I'm very impressed with it, and it does roll rather nicely as well. I have found myself having quite some stiff tires at the front. They do seem to roll fairly nicely when I do roll them on their own, but when it actually comes to rolling along the ground, it is really just the back 2 that roll, especially on this rather smoother surface. Nevertheless, I'm thoroughly impressed by this alternate form by Takara Tomy, and I'll begin to show you some comparisons between this figure as well as some other MP styled figures. For an MP size comparison, here I have the newly released MP-47 Bumblebee, and you can see that I do think that the scale here works really well. These two definitely look fantastic when displayed next to each other. I would compare him next to MP-44 Optimus, but that figure is such a pain to transform from robot to vehicle mode, so I will only be showcasing robot mode comparisons for that figure. But talking of comparisons, I do believe that this is the Spike that comes with MP-47 Bumblebee, so just comparing him to the Spike that comes with MP-47 Hound, you can see that he is substantially bigger than the previous version of Spike, and there is just so much more detail on this version than on this version. In terms of scale, I'm not too sure where Hasbro were going. Perhaps there was some mass shifting when taking into account how Bumblebee transformed, hence why this figure had to be smaller. But quite honestly, I think that this figure scales quite nicely when posed next to Bumblebee. Perhaps it wouldn't work in terms of a real life representation, but this version of Spike is definitely the obsolete version within the collection. I do believe that this probably scales better within the robot modes, and this is more for the vehicle modes, but then this one scales better for vehicle mode for Hound, so I'm really not entirely sure of the scale for this particular line. Now, as stated previously, there are reports of some breakages regarding this particular figure, so during this transformation segment I shall be taking my time and will be really easing some of the joints out. So if you do wish to skip the transformation, then I definitely recommend that you check out the timestamps listed below. To begin with, what I like to do is come to here and just collapse down these mirrors just like that. I then like to come to this windscreen and just collapse that down as well as turn my attention now to these sections. And what you're going to want to do here is just lift this seat section up just like that, and then come to this side as well and lift this seat section up. That will then allow you to very gently remove this section out, as these are the pieces which I've heard do in fact have some breakage issues. So just ease those out of their joints, and do that now for this side as well. If you feel at any point that they are beginning to perhaps resist you, then definitely take extreme caution and perhaps look into hair drying them just to loosen up some of the joints and soften them. What you're going to want to do here is take this section here and just untab this piece here. We can then lift this piece up, and you're going to want to take this here and just remove it, which will allow you to take this entire section and just pull this all the way forward just like that. Now what I'm going to do is actually remove this, as this is more than likely going to pop off during transformation, and we'll come back to that later on. You're going to want to take where these headrests would be and just rotate those down and rotate those down along this side, and then take this piece here and just pull this out, and then pull this section out as well. What we can now do is come to these pieces and then ease these sections up. Once again, be very gentle with these, as these are the pieces that I have in fact heard rumors of them actually breaking. So just ease these joints up on both sides. Now what we can proceed to do is come to these wheels, and essentially what you're going to want to do is pull these away from one another and then just collapse this section down and fold this in upon itself, and then repeat the same process for that side. Come to this side and repeat the same operation. So just pull this and making sure that's all loosened up, and then snap that down, fold this in, and then snap this one in as well. Come to these sections here and just bring that section out, bring that section out as well. And now what we can do is just collapse these down over the tops, once again ensuring that we are taking care and we are not resisting the joints too much. And we're just going to want to collapse this down and then snap this into place. Repeat the same process here for this side. Just bring this and snap this into place. And then turning our attention to these sections here, what I recommend doing is taking this and just collapsing this down as well as this, and then come to this section here, just lift this out of the way, take this here and pop this forwards, just straightening all of that out. And then we can take this section here and just lift that upwards, and then lift this joint upwards as well. Now what we can proceed to do is actually come to this section, and much like what we did earlier on, you're just going to want to pull these wheels apart just like that, and then just collapse these upon themselves just like so. Fold this in as far as it will go, and then take this section here and just snap this around the top of it, so that you have a completed foot almost done, just so that you have the entire silhouette. Now what we can do here is take this and just push this forwards, and then this section here will actually overlap and tab into place really securely and really snugly, and that's one foot of Hound essentially done. I do tend to have some clearance issues with this section. As you can see, there is some resistance, but however, I honestly do not want to apply too much force in case I do accidentally snap the plastic. This one here, there is a little bit more of transformation going on as you have to implement the gun. I do sometimes struggle with how the orientation of the gun is supposed to go, but once again, I'll show you my best look at how I do the transformation. So just take this here and fold this section out. If this section has in fact removed, just peg this back on, and then essentially what you're going to want to do is just rotate it. And then what you're going to want to do is take this whole gun, and once again, it's very difficult to actually get the gun to rotate with this, as it will fall off, but you're going to want to make sure that this hinge here folds in, and then just align the gun up with its tab. And now what we can proceed to do is fold this all up, fold that in, and then where this double joint is, you're going to want to rotate this section around, fold that in upon itself and that in upon itself, and then just tab this back into place. And that is the correct alignment for how the gun is supposed to store within the foot. Now what we can do is take this here and push this in, and then this gas canister here is in fact in the wrong orientation. And then with all of this aligned appropriately, now what you're going to want to do here is ensure that this is sat flush. And then what we can proceed to do is take this and just wrap this over the top. Once again, there is some clearance issues regarding this section, so just maneuver some of the joints out of the way and then come to this piece here, collapse this down and then tab that into place. And that should be both feet of Hound correctly transformed and orientated in the correct position. We can then just take this double joint here and collapse this down and then collapse this side down as well on both sides. Then we can proceed to rotate to the front. Take this thigh section here, rotate that forwards, and then rotate the foot. Take this here, rotate this forwards, and then also rotate the feet. And that is essentially the entire bottom half and the more difficult half, I believe, of Hound fully transformed and definitely looking incredibly flush in its design. Now turning to the upper section of Hound, you're going to want to take this section here, rotate it around and just collapse this down. Rotate this piece around as well and just collapse that down. You're then going to want to take this whole section and just lift all of this up and just get it out of the way, as this will be an area of transformation that we'll be dealing with later on. Now what you can do here is come to these sections, and what you'll want to do here is take these and just unlodge them from within their joints. They are in fact solidified by this connection, so just get those out of there, bring those up on that double hinge and then just have those rest along the sides. Repeat the same process here for this side. So just take this and wedge this section out. It can be rather difficult to do, I find, but once again, if you take some caution with it, you shouldn't have any problems. Straighten out that double joint and just have that collapse along the side as well. Turn your attention now to the arms, and what we're going to do here is just take this and pull this out on both sides. Pull this out as well, just really elongate these sections, and these pieces here are more than likely going to become unaligned. So now what we're going to do is take this here and rotate this all the way around, and what will actually happen here is where this slight L-shaped design is, this will actually overlap where this slot is. So you're just going to want to bring this up all the way. You will feel some resistance, but once you give it a firm push, it should snap into place just like so. And that is how the proper coordination for where the shoulder section should be aligned. We can then just bring this down on this side and then repeat the same process for this side. So bring this all the way up until it overlaps and snaps into place. Once again, just allowing for some caution of the other elements, but clip that into place and then proceed to rotate this all around and realign the shoulder panels appropriately. With that now completed, turn our attention to the back and just fold these wheels in just like so. We can then come to this torso area, take these pieces here and just rotate these around and then align them so that this tab pegs into the opposite side and just snap those into place. What we can now do is take these sections here, which are where the feet actually rest within vehicle mode, and just push those back just like so, and then repeat the same process here for this side. Now what we can proceed to do is actually collapse this whole section here on this double hinge joint. So collapse that in, collapse that down, and within here there are actually two tabs which are situated both there as well as there that will plug into two slots here and here. This section here is quite difficult to do, as you really have to get in there to snap those into place, but as you can see, it is easy enough once you get the hang of it. Now what you're going to want to do is just take this wheel here and just have that sitting flat there. We can proceed to take these here and just rotate these inwards, bending this hinge joint ever so carefully and folding that in, and then repeating the same process now for this side. So just bring this section in as well and just have that whole back section aligned appropriately, and it really does look very tidy and very compact. Now what you're going to want to do is take this whole section here and bring this forwards as well as the front windscreen, and we're actually going to want to rotate this all the way around just like this. We can then take this section here and bring this up, and the front windscreen will actually sit along where this back panel is, really filling and cleaning out the back incredibly well. Now what we're going to do is take the head, and yes, this is also an issue. I have seen some mention the floating head syndrome. Honestly, it's not as noticeable as it looks in some pictures. I really do think that it works quite nicely, and once again, I don't appear to have any QC issues with this neck section whatsoever. It does seem to not have hardly a gap in between where the neck and the front bonnet section of the vehicle mode begins. What we'll do here is come to this gun, and you're just going to want to bring this panel out, and then what will happen here is this will elongate with this screw. So just bring where this screw section is, bring that around, and where this slight nub is, we'll peg into this tab. So just tab that into place. With the gun now, you're going to want to bring this section down, fold this section back and bring it forwards and clip this over the top. We can then take this white section at the back here, fold this out, and then flick this section out just like so. And that is roughly the proper coordination and proper transformation for how the front missile launcher is supposed to look. Just realigning the chest. Coming now to these arms, you're going to want to take the fist and try your best to pull those out of these sockets. There really isn't much clearance here, but just pull those out all the way. And then ensure that the biceps are in the proper orientation so that you see the elbow joint exposed. Repeat the same process now for this side. Just ensure the chest is all aligned. Take this bicep section, bring this around and rotate this around. And then take the hands and once again just pull these out of their socket. And with all that being done, here we have the Transformers masterpiece MP-47 Hound fully transformed without any breakages into his robot mode. So definitely an incredibly involved and very interesting transformation, but I'm sure you'll agree with me that once all the steps are completed, we are left with a fantastic looking rendition of how Hound appeared in the G1 cartoon. This figure definitely improves upon some of the previous MP releases such as Bumblebee and Optimus Prime and gives us near enough no backpack whatsoever. All the elements do compact incredibly nicely, and this is really a pioneer of engineering on Takara and should have been the way that the MP-45B as well as MP-44 Optimus's backs compressed. Optimus did have electronics, so I can excuse that to some degree, but Bumblebee had no electronics, so to get this type of engineering on that figure definitely would have been crucial in improving some people's expectations of that figure. But this one really does look incredibly nice, and as you can see, there are no problems that I had during transformation with bits accidentally snapping. So I really do just believe that if you take your time and you are patient with some of the joints, you won't get any problems with it whatsoever. One QC issue I did however have upon transforming this figure for the first time was that the faceplate did in fact come scratched. Now this is a massive drawback to me, as he does come with two different alternate faceplates, but for those who want their neutral looking Hound with on the display without any paint defects, this is definitely something to look out. And considering the figure comes packaged within a closed box as well as in vehicle mode, this is definitely going to be something very difficult for you to watch out on. So I really do just pray and hope that your copy has better QC issues than mine did, particularly with this faceplate. But disregarding that, the rest of the paint apps seem to be carried out really nicely. I really like the head design for this character. Although it does look fairly bulky, it is rather accurate to the G1 cartoon, and he has got a almost palish type of grey paint app for the main faceplate with some really nice blue painted eyes. The missile launcher or rocket launcher, as you can see here, considering how many elements this breaks up into in order to transform within vehicle mode, I think looks really nice to how it appears on screen, definitely capturing the rocket or shoulder launcher that we see Hound use within the G1 cartoon. The arms also slim down incredibly nicely, and I really like the overall detail within the character's torso. All of the paint apps on the yellow lines and the yellow stripes appear to have been painted incredibly precisely, and this figure is painted in actual green paint. This isn't green plastic as far as I'm aware, this is all painted, so this is a really nicely painted figure. As we move down to this area here, this too has also been painted really nicely, and if you align the ratchet joints up appropriately, you can in fact get this strip fully aligned to match his on-screen appearance. So just a really nice looking figure. I think the legs also clean up really nicely. No excess kibble that would detract from the overall design of Hound, and I think that they've actually really managed to get his feet looking fairly nicely and tidy and compact. Considering how much transformation goes into these feet, it really is rather sublime. Now in terms of Hound's articulation, the head is on a ball joint, so it is able to look left to right as well as look up and down. The ball joint does in fact have to be popped out of the socket in order to get maximum range of motion, but as you can see, it can look up and down, tilt side to side, as well as look left to right. If you utilize the transformation hinge, you can utilize this to make him look up, but it does begin to look fairly obtrusive and abstract. The rocket launcher itself can rotate side to side. It can't really look up and down too far. It can only really hinge up about that far and down to that degree. The arms can rotate the full 360 degrees as well as hinge out to the sides. 360 rotation at the bicep as well as where the elbow joint is. There is in fact a double jointed elbow, so you are in fact fact able to get this to a great range of motion. The hands can rotate 360 as well as hinge back and forth. The fingers are also articulated, with the index finger being on its own individual hinge, as well as for the thumb. In terms of shoulder articulation, there is a butterfly joint, so you can pull the arms forwards and backwards. For the torso, there is 360 swivel as well as an ab crunch, which is a super nice attention to detail. The legs are on ratchet joints, so can kick out to about that far, as well as kick backwards to about that far before this skirt section obstructs it. You can lift this section out to the side, allowing you to do the splits on Hound. There is a rotation joint where the thigh section would be, and there is also above 90-degree bend at the knee. There is a rotation joint at the foot due to transformation, so it can pivot forwards and backwards. The feet can also tilt forwards and backwards as well as have an ankle rocker joint. So overall, for articulation, this figure is incredibly well articulated, allowing you to get this character into many different poses. In order to utilize the scuba diving mask as well as swapping out the faceplate, you simply just want to lift this section up here on the top of Hound's head. In order to switch out the faceplates, there is just a slot there that you just want to take this, lift it up, and it will slide off, and then you can insert either of the two that come included. I've decided to go with the rather angry expression of Hound. And then in order to activate the scuba diving mask, you just want to get your finger in there and just flip it out just like so, trying to not pop off the face sculpt, and then just collapse this down over the top. The hinge joints on this are really stiff, so it does make this rather fiddly to do, as of course you don't want to apply too much pressure and scratch the paint of this hood section. So just lift this up and push it down, and then collapse this back down. And that is the scuba diving mask on Hound. It is just a transparent clear piece of blue plastic, but I think looks really cool, especially with this rather exaggerated facial expression. It does almost look like something from a horror film, but definitely a really nice inclusion that they didn't have to do, but I'm so glad that they went the extra mile to actually include. And then taking a look at the second alternate faceplate he comes with, it is rather a smiling expression, so that is quite a nice expression to include within the figure. He also does include a blaster weapon, which I do believe folds. However, the hinge joint in mine is incredibly stiff, so I do believe if I force it, it may crack the joint, and honestly, it's not worth it to find out. But this does just plug into Hound's palm via the same tab and port connection that we've seen on most of these MP styled figures, and then just wrap the fingers around just like so. And then now what we can do is include the added holographic accessory, so you can almost make it look as if the Hound is deploying holograms, which I think is quite a nice weapon. And I do believe that this is something that he does do whilst in the G1 cartoon. I, for one, am not familiar with this weapon, nor have ever seen him utilise it, so I'm merely going off on the instructions and what some reference images showcase online. But I think that this definitely looks really awesome when implemented onto the character itself. And then finally, something else you can do is actually take this tarpaulin section, and there is actually a handle here which you can wrap around the character's hand. However, it's really difficult to actually get on there, as you don't have much clearance to wrap the fingers around the actual handle itself. So I'm just going to show you roughly how it should look in a makeshift sort of way. You just want to tab that in, and that is effectively how it's supposed to look. It's rather a throwaway display and will not be a weapon that I'll necessarily be including within the character. It almost acts as if though it's some kind of riot shield, and it's something that the Last Night movie, the best Voyager Hound from the movie series, actually had as well. So that's quite a nice added touch. And here for a masterpiece size comparison, here is how Hound fares with some of the other MP Toon styled characters, such as the MP plus Wheeljack, as well as Bumblebee, as well as the new version of Optimus. I think the scale here works really nice. I do like how he is considerably shorter than Prime, and he's roughly exactly the same size as Wheeljack, which I do believe is animation accurate, so it is good to see them actually scaling really nicely within their robot modes. So that was my review on the newly released Takara Tomy Transformers Masterpiece MP-47 Autobot Hound. Personally, I have had a fantastic experience handling this figure. I think that his Willys Jeep alt form looks identical to a real life Jeep. It definitely captures some of the main attributes of that vehicle and looks incredibly premium when you have all the panels correctly aligned. I love the interior detailing of the actual vehicle mode itself, as well as the addition of actually including this top tarpaulin section as well in order to give it a different look. I do like that he does in fact include a holographic character, as well as a newly more updated look for Spike to go along with your other MP figures. Transformation, once again, if you do handle it rather carefully and are cautious with some of the areas that feel slightly tighter, I honestly don't think you'll have any breakage issues whatsoever unless you're incredibly unlucky and get a figure that is unfortunately defective. In terms of robot mode, I honestly don't think they could have made this figure look any better, other than perhaps including some die cast within the feet, but considering how much engineering goes into the feet and how much stuff actually stores within there, it does make the figure incredibly well grounded. I think he also comes with a great plethora of accessories such as alternative faceplates, different weapons, as well as different characters. It definitely does look like a really nice figure and improves upon the previous two MP releases in actually tidying up the back so much nicer than Bumblebee and Optimus Prime. I'm incredibly impressed by this figure, not only by the fantastic detailing, but the paint applications, articulation, and overall price point really do definitely make this figure incredibly worth the asking price, and I honestly have got to say that this is one of my favourite MP figures to come out of the G1 line. With all that being said, if you are interested in adding Hound to your collection, and why wouldn't you be, then I definitely recommend that you should check out Shosey's store, and once again he is in stock and ready to ship right now, so you could have this figure within your collection within a matter of days. For that, I will leave links down in the description below, but be sure to let me know what you thought of the figure and the review itself also down in the comment section below, and until my next review, I'll see you then. Thanks for watching.